like we even shared the bed with each other, even though we had our own bed, right? I was like, hey Viper, do you mind me coming over? It feels like we have kind of the same taste of the background shelves.
Well, I'll tell you about my background shelf. This was my wife's idea because, she told
Okay.
me that it looks more intellectual and more professional when you can have books behind you.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't read any single one of those, but it looks more professional.
I know that feeling.
Yeah,
uh,
listen, man, you're someone who's been playing this game for such a long time
yeah,
and someone who's been playing at a professional level for such a long time. There's a lot of material in the community about you. So it has
yeah,
been a real nostalgia trip for me, to go back and read some of your past interviews. And
yeah,
it was also really fun to see what people were talking about at different points in the community's history. So, for instance, there's a 2010 interview with you where the interviewer said something like, I hope DauT keeps playing Age of Empires 2 tournaments. And that was in 2010. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
little did he know that 12 years later, he'd still be active. So things have changed a lot since then.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And DauT is now much more active compared to 2010. So things have changed very positively in that regard.
How much do you remember about those days?
I think remember certain things pretty well still. I think we have a Masters of Arabia tournament around that year where Tim won, Viper got second, and I got third,
What
something like that,
was it, the
right?
legendary well walled Tim? Was that in
Yes,
2010?
yeah, something like that. So I remember it
Wow.
kind of still, yeah.
Wow. You started playing online in 2004, and as with a lot of people that were playing the zone back then,
Yeah.
you were mostly playing custom scenarios, which were very popular in those days.
hmm
So, do you still like to play CS from time to time?
Just barely. The only map which I absolutely love is TTF Racing, because I think it's just so much fun trying to compete against the others, getting into the destination first and getting the gold. No, but other than that, I don't play any custom scenario anymore. In the past,
Well,
when I was young, it was so much fun because you only had to focus on controlling units, and the custom scenarios always were built in a way that you get the perk, as dependent on your performance, and
mhm.
that was really exciting as a young player. But it gets boring after some time, and then I seeked other challenges.
Mhm. Was TTF Racing one of the players you used to play, one of the maps you used to play back then, or is it more like a recent thing?
I think it was more of a recent thing. So I remember when I got into RM and I became good in RM, then I saw that map once and then I
Mhm.
felt like, okay, it's pretty fun. I played it every once in a while, but it's definitely not a map I started with.
You said you used to rage a lot. But seeing how you conduct yourself these days and how much of a positive attitude you have, I find that incredibly hard to believe. So, what type of rage are we talking about here? Are we talking about smashing keyboards and punching holes in a wall? Or was it more
Yeah.
like just saying scheisse every now and then?
No, I've never been that kind of emotional person, so I've never really went ham on the keyboard. But I guess it's more about raging with myself, being
Right.
unhappy, doing certain mistakes, and losing again. Like I think in that regard, it was even very positive for me because it kept me growing. Like it kept the fire on for me to try to grow as a player,
Hmm.
and it helped very very much because I've always been extremely competitive, and I've always wanted to, like, if I do something, I want to be extremely good at it, maybe even
Hmm.
the best in it.
Hmm.
And yeah, that sparked the fire in me, I would say, which was good. But yeah, I'm not the type of raging player for sure.
Yeah, well, I was very confused when I read that because, yeah,
Yeah,
you don't. That's not the kind of vibe you seem
no,
to be showing us most of the time.
no.
So at some point you found recorded games of Spring versus Praise.
Mhm.
And it's always important to remember that it was really hard to get a hold of recorded games from good
Yes,
players back in those
yeah,
days.
yeah,
But watching those recorded games motivated you to give random map a try. And you were lucky enough that Praise himself accepted to coach you. And this must have
yeah,
been around 2008. And I'm really
yep.
curious, what did coaching look like in 2008? Were you guys on voice? Did you pay him a fee? How were things like?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that he coached me there because when I started, it was obviously at that time it was around 1K5, 1K6,
We're
and
talking Voobly times, so this would
probably
be
no,
like
MSN zone times. So that was even worse than Wobbly, right? In terms
Okay,
of elo. So
so are we
that
talking
would
like maybe
1K1.
1100? Yeah,
Yeah,
1100
something
TE.
like that
Mhm.
nowadays, right? So it's pretty without hurting anyone, it's pretty bad. Hello guys. Well, those guys who watch my stream know that anyway. And yeah, I saw him. He had 2K rating, right? Which at that point
Wow.
of time maybe would have been 1K7, something like that. And that was already considered as one of the better players, right? Like expert level. And I
Mhm.
just messaged him, right? Like completely random. I was like, okay, let's try. Maybe he's saying something, right? And he was like, we got into a conversation. He was very friendly, and
Mhm.
he was also very open with helping. He had that kind of mindset, and then he accepted that. And how the coaching looked like was the following: we co-opted, right? So I was playing, he co-opted me, and I was trying to play, and he always pinged like X X X TC Garrison Villager, Garrison Villager, Garrison Villager. Like every second he was writing something. It was
Okay.
not on voice. He was always writing something,
Mhm.
and I was playing 10 times worse than I usually did because I was trying to pay attention to what he was
You
telling
were
me,
probably
and like
nervous as well, right?
yeah, nervous and so many things going on, right? But yeah, I think that the method was extremely good because every time it helped me remembering that I have to queue up villagers, and queuing up villagers is so important for Age of Empires 2, right? You want to get more villagers, get
You
better
could say that,
economy,
yeah.
yeah. So that really helped, and yeah, that was the basic, I would say, and that went on for I think a couple of months, maybe even 1-2 years. I'm not too sure about that anymore.
Mhm.
But then I, grew extremely fast as a player, and yeah, watching recorded games was obviously the most important thing. But sometimes it was really hard to get to record games.
Right, right.
Mm.
So, did you pay him a fee, or was it all volunteer
No,
work?
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was all voluntarily by him. So extremely generous by him. Yeah.
Mhm. What parts of your gameplay did you guys work on the most? Was it
Building
just
TCs, villagers, yeah, building
so
villages.
just like the basics, the very basics of Age of
Yeah,
Empires?
yeah, exactly. Macro orientated focus, and also build orders with Hans, because back in the days, Hans Arabia 1v1 was just to
Bread
get.
and butter, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like Hans, yeah, and yeah, that's something I learned a lot from him.
So
Scout opening into CA.
you said he was a pretty good player. Was he
Yeah.
like tournament level player or how?
I would say he was trying to participate in tournaments, but he was uh, maybe top 64, something like that. So
Very
he,
good in general terms, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So he was able to play a bit, but it's not like he was, fighting for the money spots. That's not
Right, right.
the case.
You also mentioned Dreams as someone who helped you improve a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did he also
Mm.
coach you, or did you just mean like he helped you improve because you played against him so much?
With Dreams, it was a little bit different compared to my relationship with Praise, because with Praise it was like one direction learning. He gave something, I learned something. With Dreams, it was a little bit different because he obviously was better back in the days as a player. We played against each other a lot because we matched up in the ladder. Well,
Hmm.
ladder. I was high enough that he played me. Let's say it like that. And yeah, he obviously had a very good win rate against me, but he also learned something, right? I was every once in a while able to push him to his boundaries as well. So yeah, it was a little bit different, but we played a lot and we got along very well as well.
So he
As
didn't directly coach you. It was just more that you guys played a lot.
exactly, we played a lot, and after the game, it was like, okay, this was your mistake. What could you have done differently? Stuff like that.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, Dreams, man. What a character that guy was. He was probably the first big streamer. Was also
Yeah,
a really good player, right? I
yeah,
don't know, maybe VH started streaming around the same time. I don't really
mhm,
remember anymore.
yeah,
Um, Here's an interesting quote from that same 2010 interview I was talking about earlier.
yeah.
Quote, there are many top players, but most of them just play like a machine. I'm a
Mhm,
player who plays like a machine. I don't really think that much.
yeah.
So, as it pertains to you, is this still true today?
I think it has changed a lot ever since I came back in 2020, but I still find myself going into that rhythm every once in a while, and that's the moment where I have to be like very objective about myself and think about, okay, why did I go into that pattern, and how do I prevent myself going into the pattern in the future? Because back in the days, I think you had much more success in playing like a robot,
Hmm.
because Hans War, like, you don't need to think a lot. You go scouts into CA, like you spam units, right? It's kind of like a water play. But nowadays the game has become so much more complex. It's just fascinating. And
Interesting.
yeah, that way, if you play like that, you on the high level, you just get smashed because they
Hmm.
will outsmart you and outcounter you.
Right. So, how does that lack of thinking about the game manifest itself in your play? I mean, in what moments do you go like, "Well, I wish I would have used my brain more here"?
uh, it happens when I'm not 100% sure what the right play is in certain matchups. I mean, we have 42 civilizations, and if you try to build up a matrix of all the civilizations, or all the matchups which can happen, it becomes a huge matrix, right?
Mhm.
And you need to know as a top player in every single moment what is the right play, and that is extremely hard to do, right?
Right,
Because it's
right,
just
right.
so complex.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
complicated game, man.
yeah, yeah, because
It-
every civ works different against a different civ. It's just, but that's also the reason why it makes the game so fun, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, sometimes I have those moments where, like, oh, what should I have done better, right? Like, that was not the play. That was just not
Mhm.
the play, and yeah,
You know, the younger folks in the community probably don't know this, but you used to be a top 2 player. For
yeah,
the longest time, you were virtually the only player who could beat Viper in tournaments. For
yeah,
example, in Clash of the Titans 2014,
yeah.
2013, sorry. You
13, yeah,
finished, yeah, you finished second behind Viper, but you actually beat him in the tournament. And you
yeah,
only finished second due to a very questionable and flawed scoring system. You should actually have
yeah,
been first.
yeah, yeah,
Then a few weeks later, you beat Viper again in an epic best of 21. Now, these days, of course, you just mentioned it, we have a lot more civs, we have new maps, and we have barely any lag, at least in 1v1s. So the game itself has changed a lot. But at the top level, would you say the gameplay has drastically changed as well? I mean, do people think about the game in a widely different way than they were doing back in 2014?
I think so. I think the scene has become extremely more competitive. Makes also sense. There's so much more money on the line as well, so people are, have way more motivation to perform well. And also, I think the community has grown so much more that if you're capable of performing well and you have established yourself as a good player, then you also get more feedback, positive feedback from people. And that also makes something with you as a human being, right? It's like you get more acknowledgement, and, it's positive most of the time. So, yeah, players have more motivation to go that path. And I think that's amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, but in terms of the gameplay, how people
Hmm.
play the game,
Hmm.
what has changed? I mean, how are you playing differently now that you were playing in 2014? Are there different aspects of the game people focus a lot more now?
I think so. As we mentioned, there are so much more civilizations now. We have 42 compared to the 18 which we had back in the day. So obviously, with certain balance changes and with the new civilizations being added, things change a lot. Also, the drafting has been established as well. So
Interesting.
back in the days, most of the time we had Mayans, Vikings, Mongols, Aztecs, and Huns. Those five civilizations from those 18, you saw 95% of the time, because the other civs just didn't have any chance.
Hmm.
So that changes a lot, because nowadays we have drafting. And yeah, map wise hasn't changed too much, I would say. Of course, the maps have become more fair, but yeah, having more civilizations as options just gives a huge difference. And of course, the plays have become so much better over time.
So, do you think that being strategically flexible plays a much bigger role now than it did in
Yeah, for sure.
2014? Okay.
Like, adaptation is one of the most important things, and one big factor, which I haven't mentioned yet, is that multi queue has been established as well around, I think, 2013, 2014, if I'm
I
not
think it was
mistaken. So
later. It must have been later.
yeah,
And the thing is,
could be.
when it first appeared, that thing, not a lot of people were in favor of it, right?
No,
Yeah,
no,
you remember people were totally against it
yeah, yeah,
because it would supposedly make the game easier to play, which is true. Of course, it makes
it
it
is.
easier to play. Well, interesting question. What's your opinion on it?
It's very interesting. I've also been one of the guys who said, like, no, it's part of the skill to be able to queue up everything. So I was not the biggest fan of it. Now thinking about it, it's better because it feels like the game overall makes it, it's more exciting to watch as a viewer, for example, to see more action on the field, because now we can see those highlight moments, yeah, like micro intensive battles, which back in the days most of the time you didn't see that much, because you didn't want to pay too much attention on microing, because you wanted to queue up your macro buildings as well, right? You wanted to keep the economy going, you wanted to build military, and now you're able to do so while remaining on the army screen.
Mhm.
Back in the days you always had to jump back to the TC, jump back to the barrack, whatever, right? So that is a very important factor. And also I had a discussion, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago, with Grubby, and we played a different game,
Mhm.
and I told him I'm not used to having villagers working automatic. Like I didn't have to manage the villagers at all, which is another step forward, right? And he said like he likes it, right? And I understand his point. Like that way, you only focus on army, like micring and stuff like that. Me personally, that is too much, right? I think that would, move the aspect of Age of Empires too far away. But it's just different visions or different perspectives, and yeah, I think the state of the game is just amazing how it is right now.
Mhm. I think you mentioned a couple of very interesting points right there. And one would be, well, there's always this dichotomy between, macro and micro. And well,
Yeah,
if you start putting less emphasis on macro, of course, micro is going to get more emphasis. And I
exactly.
guess I guess it kind of depends what kind of game you like. And in my opinion, Age of Empires 2 is one game that does try to give a lot of focus to macro. And so, what I'm always scared of is when we start trying to put more emphasis or less emphasis on macro, we start losing the identity of Age of Empires 2, right? Because that's one thing that people like about Age of Empires 2, that it has
Yeah,
this very heavy macro component to it, right? Very
exactly,
interesting.
exactly.
When I spoke to DauT in this podcast, we talked about both you and Viper, and he famously said that Viper is more talented than you, but that you make up for that alleged lack of talent through sheer hard work and discipline.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I don't think anyone disputes the existence of natural talent, but I think
Mhm.
there still seems to be enough room for discussion when it comes to establishing how much of a role it plays in getting good at
Mhm.
something. Now, I personally happen to think that talent plays a much smaller role than most people seem to believe. And I know this is an
Mhm.
age-old question that will probably never be settled, but I'd like to know where you stand on it. So, do you think that a lack of talent can be overcome by hard work and discipline?
It's a very funny coincidence, because I had the discussion yesterday with my best friend. He
Hmm.
shares the same opinion about that topic with me. If I'm thinking about talent, for me, of course, talent helps you to get into certain subjects easier compared to those people who are, let's say, a little less talented. But I think talent is always going to lose against hard work, and talent maybe is around 5% if we're talking about success, because you can be the most talented person, you're always going to lose against that person who's able or willing to put in the work. And for me, for example, of course, I would agree with the statement of DauT, like not as extreme as he said, but if I think about all the pro players we have in the scene, I would even claim I'm the one who's the least talented, but I would say I'm one of the top two, top three who puts in the most work. And that is also motivation for me personally. So
Hmm.
I have the mindset like the person who puts in the work is most of the time going to be the successful one, and that keeps me driving. I don't care about talent.
That's. I think it's important to notice here that DauT, when he said that, he wasn't trying to be rude or anything. That's
Oh, no,
just,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you guys are
It's
very
just
good friends,
yeah,
of course. Just his way of saying things,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
could tell he had a lot of admiration for your
yeah,
discipline and for your stick to itness. I'd say.
yeah, yeah,
So it's important to notice that. I think.
for sure, for sure.
Right. So I believe you became a father in 2017. Is that right?
Let me quickly calculate back. It should be 2017, yeah, or
Right.
2016, or one of those two.
Right. So that means you were 26 or 25.
25, yeah, 25.
25 when your daughter was born, which, for today's standards is pretty young.
Yeah, for sure.
S- So, what were the challenges of becoming a father at such an early age?
I think the Challenges. I mean, it's not a secret topic that back in the days the relationship with my mother of my daughter was not the best. You could claim that was heavily dependent also on the age, because at that point of time I was not mature enough as a person that I allowed certain things to happen. So I think that was the biggest challenge, but that's not really dependent on my daughter, I would say. When I'm thinking about my kid, I would say that the challenges which had arised would have arisen anyhow, even if I'm 35. So I would
Mm-hmm.
not really say it's age dependent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what would you say would have been different if it would have been today? I mean, would have been easier for you? Would have been.
I would not even say so, actually. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because usually what you see about people when they when they're 25, most of them are saying, no, I want to travel the world, I want to live my life, go party, blah 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 blah. Where I'm saying, oh, I'm at 25, I was already happy. Like, I didn't have the drive to travel anymore. I was like, I'm 100% happy here. And also, I've never been that party person. Like, I don't like
Mm-hmm.
go clubbing, right? Family is a very important factor for me personally. So I've always envisioned myself having children, so I didn't mind starting early, so to say. So I think there are no big
Interesting.
challenges there.
Interesting. What was your life like then, back in
Yeah, life.
2016?
Yeah, life at that point was maybe the worst phase of my life, because there were two factors. The first factor was that my back in the days girlfriend, she had, first she had a miscarry, and
Wow,
then
I'm so sorry.
yeah, thanks. And then 2 months later, she became pregnant again, and then in the fifth week, she started bleeding, and that lasted for 30 weeks. So until the end, literally. So she stayed in the hospital for 5 months. Um, let's say 80% of the time, and bleeding all the time. Like, she was in a very bad state mentally,
Mm-hmm.
because she always had the fear of losing the child again. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it was a combination of me studying, trying to finish my master's degree, then also working, then also taking care of her, taking care of the household. So I literally spent 18 hours the day being busy, so to say. That's why it was pretty tough at that time. And then also I had the issue with my kidney, which gave me a lot of pain, a lot of pain. You kind of,
I
yeah.
have no clue what you're talking about. Well, I mean, and I think you've gone public with it, have you?
I think some people know. I will not explain it a lot, because might people get bored. But just quick summary. So it's kind of like what happened back in the days. There is a rope. I think it's called rope between the bladder and the kidney, and that one was very narrow, and therefore the fluid from the kidney could not vanish as fast as it's supposed to be, and that gave me a lot of pain on the nerve. And yeah, I always compare it like you have a knife in your body all the time.
Well,
And that lasted for 1.5 years until the doctors finally found that. And when I think back to that days, I was like, yeah, this was by far the hardest aspect of my life. So yeah, it was not ideal. um so yeah, there were a lot of challenges for sure.
I have two kids as well,
Hmm.
and they were born extremely prematurely. And I mean,
Okay.
not supposed to be alive prematurely. They were born at 24 weeks. They weighed 1 pound, 500 grams.
Whoa.
And yeah, we're like 30 centimeters long, so really tiny.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
a miracle. Sorry about the words, that they're alive.
Yeah.
And what you just described was exactly what I was going through at that time,
Mm.
because they had to spend the first 5 months of their life in a hospital in Heidelberg, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And so I know exactly what we were talking about. Now,
Mhm.
thankfully, they're healthy. They're doing amazing today. So it all had a happy end. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
it's
Wow. Yeah,
it's unbelievable the kinds of things that doctors are able to do today. Actually,
crazy.
I was, yeah. And the one thing I totally, I can remember this as if it was yesterday. So when I when they were born, when my kids were born. It was a very complicated pregnancy, of course, when they
Mm.
were born. So the first time that I got to see them, the nurses warned me, well, it's going to be probably a little bit of a shock for you, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. There's a lot of cables. And I remember all of those cables, none of that mattered to me. I was just shocked how tiny they were.
Crazy.
It was just this little piece of meat. They couldn't
Mm.
move. Yeah, there were a bunch of cables, bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing that you kind of had the same experience than me at roughly the same time as well, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, but 24 weeks is like
Yeah,
I
it
think you
was.
cannot go lower, right? Like I always have in mind 24 weeks is like the absolute minimum.
Yeah,
If you go less, then the
it's kind of the
chances are
limit. It's kind of the
non-existent.
limit. Well, in Heidelberg, they kind of never give up. So if
Hmm.
someone has to have a kid, they will try to save it no matter what. And we've seen a couple of very extreme cases there, and some cases that didn't
And
end up that well, of course. But
and
yeah, we were
yeah.
very, very fortunate that things went this well for
Yeah,
us.
and whoever has seen a, let's say, after 40 weeks come out baby, if you look at the baby, it's like so small, right? So small. And now 24 weeks,
Ten
like you
times
cannot
less, yeah.
imagine. Like 10 times exactly, because the in the rest 16 weeks it grows so much
A lot.
more. It's
Yeah,
just like wow,
yeah,
crazy.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
So, Viper is your daughter's godfather, and
Yes.
I find this fascinating because there are many people I met through the internet I would very much consider good friends, but I guess when it comes to asking someone to be the godfather of my child, I'd probably just stick to someone I regularly meet in person.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows you and Viper are friends. I guess I just didn't realize you were such close friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, talk about your friendship with Viper. How did it go from you meeting him online through a computer game to you asking him to be the godfather of your first child?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Apparently, Viper knows the story a little bit more than I do, because back when we met online in the game, I was a bit of a bigger name than he was, because I
Right.
already were at 2K and he was, just starting out. And apparently, we were playing against each other in a team game, and we were on the opposing flank sides. And I don't know, like I did a funky move, and then he did a funky move as well, and we were laughing at each other, right? So that was kind of the first thing where we had the interaction. And then I remember back in the days when there was WCL 7. I was playing with RVK, with Dugao and Riot.
Hmm.
And we were trying to fight for the first spot, because the three of us were kind of the new generation of the pro
Hmm.
players. And yeah, we formed a team. And then Dogao said that he has another one where he thinks he would fit the team extremely well, and he's playing extremely well. And that was Viper, right? And back in the days, he still was. He has improved a lot, but he was not on that certain level yet, except on water
Obviously.
maps. Right, on
Oh,
water
right.
maps, he was like killing it, and that's where we added him.
Sorry, Jordan.
He,
What year
yeah,
was this, roughly?
2011.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, so he was involved in the group, but he was not playing as much, because Riet, Duga, and me were the main players at that point of time. But I interacted a lot with Viper, and it feels like we're in so many topics like twins, you could say. Like
Hmm.
we think so much alike, and it's just when we're interacting with each other, we're very rational people, and like we never argue, right? Like if I have a different opinion than him on a certain topic, we talk about it. Everyone presents his perspective without any emotional attachment. It's just like, okay, I see it as that way, I see it as that way, and then that's it, right? Like full respect, full tolerance. And I personally appreciate it, because there are so many topics out in the world, and everyone has different opinions on things, and like, yeah, it's very easy to get emotional about things, and then there's always a likelihood that things get out of hands, and that has never been the case with him. And
Hmm.
I really like that, like just very full respect discussions. And yeah, I think that is our biggest bond, I would say. And then obviously a lot of bantering as well, and the
Ye-
competitive part, right? With Age of Empires 2, I was playing a huge role as well. And back in the days, also, baptism for me personally, just for me personally, is not a big thing. Back in the days, for my ex girlfriend, is a big thing, because she is very religious, and she also had good contact to Viper, and then we came up with the idea to also have him included there. but he's the second one. So the first one is
Right. Okay.
someone who is nearby.
Right. I understand that. But it's still, I find it pretty amazing that a computer game has connected you guys in this way.
Amazing.
Yeah, right. And what were some of the most fun moments that you had with him? I mean,
Oh,
what are kind
Dubai,
of
Dubai.
Dubai
Yeah,
with the Tyrant clan?
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
talk about that a bit.
if we're talking about most memorable moments, it was Dubai, but also a lot of Age of Empires 2 tournaments. But if we're talking about fun moments, it was just Dubai, 100%, because not only have been able to explore and experience so many amazing things there, but also, it's just different if you meet each other online and interact there, compared to when you live together for 3 weeks, right?
Right.
It was just amazing. And yeah, like we even shared the bed with each other, even though we had our own bed, right? I was like, hey, Viper, do you mind me coming over, sleep in your bed, we can watch something, right? Because it was just, I'm open about it. I don't care.
Fair
And
warning: people are gonna pick that apart.
I know,
Just so you
I know.
know, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but I'm used to people gossiping. But anyway, it was just, we are watching how's it called, a soap called The Expedition, where there are two people traveling the world, trying to pick up girls, stuff like that,
Right.
and we're just watching it, being entertained by that. And yeah, it was fun, right? And also so many awesome moments in Dubai where we're trying to, I don't know, in a certain spot, trying to get in touch with women, for example. And yeah, had good experiences there as well, in terms
Yeah.
of
Please talk
who's more successful in that and stuff like
in that regard.
that.
Yeah. Please talk about these Dubai trips. How did they come to life? I mean, this was all because of the Tyrant sponsor, who was someone who was incredibly wealthy, and yeah, just talk about how did it all come to life.
Yeah, so it was after, no, it was even during WCL 7, where we as RVK were a strong team, and the sponsor has come to the Age of Empires scene. That was his first appearance, and he managed to revive the old legends, which were back in the days Halen, Grunt, KCAP, Coven,
Coven.
and DauT was not a old legend because he was still playing, right?
Hmm.
But he was in the mix with those four, and then there was a big scenery, right? Like, who wins, the old generation or the new generation? And yeah, Tyrant managed to win. I don't remember
Yeah,
score.
you
I
guys
think it
lost.
was 5-3,
It was
something like
pretty
that.
close. Viper
It
told me.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was very close. And that was a big thing for the sponsor, because for him it was important. Like, he's a winner guy. Like, whenever he puts money into a team, for example, he needs to win, right? So that was the first big thing. But at that point of time, Coven, Helen, and Grant said, no, okay, we're done. We cannot anymore. It's just too much, too stressful. And then it was KCAP and DauT, and so they needed a new team, and they decided to have me and Viper in the new team. And then that was the ultimate team, so to say: KCAP, DauT, Viper, and me. And we just absolutely dominated everything ever since then. And yeah, so the sponsor said, like, he's hosting tournaments every once in a while, and we always had in mind, like, if we win a big tournament, we could be invited into Dubai. Like,
Hmm.
it has never been agreed on, but it's always something which we had in the mind, because after the first tournament with Tyrant, with Coven, with the old legends, they have been invited into Dubai. So we always knew that could be an option.
It's a possibility. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And then we won. I think it was called a land nomad tournament. It should be in
The
2000.
Tribal Wars. Tribal Wars. Yep.
Tribal Wars. Yeah, exactly. So we won that, and then after that we got the invitation, and yeah, that's how it all started. Because, as you mentioned, he's a very, very wealthy person, and yeah, he was able to afford us coming over and inviting us, and
Also, very
we,
mysterious one. No one seems to
it
know
was,
who he is exactly, except from you guys, of course.
yeah, yeah,
After the best of 21 in 2014, we were talking about earlier, you
yeah.
started distancing yourself from the game, though you didn't completely abandon it. For instance, you still made it to the Maldives in 2015, though for your standards, you had a bit of a disappointing showing there. You finished sixth. And in that time period, you tried several times to come back to the game, but never really managed to stick to it for long. However, in June of 2020, you did come back for good, and you've now been streaming and playing consistently ever since. So, what was different this time around? Didn't you enjoy your job anymore? Did the pandemic play a role?
So a big factor for me personally was, I was back in the days together with a girl that was not really liking that I was gaming. And the problem I had was I was not self confident enough in that time, standing up for myself there. And I was like, yeah, okay, I don't want to really game that much anymore anyway. And then, I commit myself to her instead of following my passion. And I also always had the idea in my mind, which, the picture is made most of the time by community, by society, by your parents, that, oh yeah, you have to get yourself a safe job and, education, safe job, and, have safety, so to say. And that was the picture I was following all the time. And then after all the years of studying, after all the years of not really enjoying that part of my life, and
Hmm.
then finishing with the work where I was really well paid, I
Hmm.
realized I don't enjoy it. Like, it gives me money is fine, but what like, you don't enjoy it. You don't enjoy life, or a big part of your life. And that was the moment where I realized, like, I need to change something, right? And yeah, I came back to the game. I played like 1 or 2 months, but it was not the same. Like, I was playing extremely bad for my standards, and I didn't just enjoy it anymore, because when you're, working, and I was working as a business analyst. It is very complex in terms of mental thinking, and then after that, going back to a high level game is just very hard on your brain.
Hmm.
I could not handle it.
Hmm.
So at one point I had to make the decision. So life changed in a way that I, separated from my back in the day girlfriend, and then also my view of life has changed as well. Like, right now I'm in the moment where I say everyone should follow their passion, right? Because it brings so much energy and it helps you so much. And that's why it's like, okay, I'd rather try it out now when I'm young and completely fail than be 40 or 50
And regret you
and
never
live
tried
in
it.
regret, right? That
Hmm.
that is just a horror, because when you're that age, it's very hard to make things happen than like trying to go all in, so to say, because most of the time you have more, I say, responsibilities. And that's why it's like, okay, go all in. And yeah, that was the main factor, I would say.
So you never really enjoyed your job then. That's what I'm getting
No,
from you. What was a
no, it's
typical day at work? What did a typical day at work look like for you?
so I go to the office at 7 a.m. I'm there, then obviously on the PC doing my projects. I was a project manager and a business analyst, so doing both things. So I'm very disciplined and very structured. So I have my tasks, which I've fulfilled within, I don't know, 1 2 hours. And then more and more people come into the office. And the big issue for me as well was that I was by far the youngest, because it was a very good company. People really, were happy there. Gave a lot of benefits, and the second youngest was around 45. So it was
Amazing.
a huge difference
You were
in that
25,
regard.
26.
I was 25, right? And
Amazing.
it's just a huge difference. So I didn't have really people around my age where I was really able to interact on a different level, so to say. I always had to go for the very mature topics, like family, like society, like, yeah, politics, sometimes stuff like that.
You couldn't talk
And
about gym and
yeah, exactly, yeah.
and going out with girls.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just different, right? And so my life was very boring in that regard. And obviously I was trying, as I was very ambitious, trying to, climb the corporate ladder, so to say. But I found my boundaries. And yeah, and then, you staying at work, and then you come back at 3 p.m., something like that, and always the same, always the same, always the same.
Right.
And yeah, for me personally, it was just boring. I
Mhm.
didn't like it too much.
And you
Also,
just let go of it
yeah, analyzing
for
data.
it's
I,
amazing,
I'm
man. It's
Yeah,
amazing you had
it's
the courage to do that.
yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, for sure. It's like
So
you have to always reflect on yourself. I think it's very important to reflect and see where am I standing now, and am I happy about that? Because most of the time we just accept things and it drags you down, and it don't doesn't only drag you down but also your family members or the
people around
person
you. Hmm.
people around you. It affects them as well, right? And if you manage to get yourself in a good position where you're happy, satisfied with your life, and for everyone that's different, right? Some people are super happy with being in a corporate situation, and that's amazing. But I think it is important to challenge yourself and say, okay, am I happy? Because if I'm happy, then I have also good impact on my surroundings, and that makes society better as well.
So the pandemic played no role in this for you.
No, nothing, nothing.
Okay. hmm did the success of other Age of Empires 2 streamers make you realize that streaming Age of Empires 2 for a living was now a viable career?
Yeah, Viper, right? I had great touch with Viper, and seeing him thriving so much and having so much joy in life, and I was like always picturing it myself, because before I made that decision of committing fully 100%, 2 years before that, I always was thinking about that actively for 2 years. Like, because when I do something, I want to commit 100%. I don't want to do half of that and half of that. I'm just not the person who's capable of doing so. And I was like, man, he's literally like living a life which I want to live as well. Like, not having anyone telling you what to do. You don't have to be. You're independent. That's the word. Like,
And to
you're
be
independent.
flexible,
Yeah,
right?
you can choose yourself when do you want to work, and it's not like, okay, you have to work 40 hours per week. Like, if I want to, I want to work 80 hours per week because I
hmm
just feel like it, right? And sometimes I feel like, okay, I only do 30, whatever. But that's something I want to decide myself.
hmm I obviously felt the impact of the pandemic in my life, as everyone
Mhm.
else on this planet, I
Yeah,
guess.
for sure.
But I think in my case, the toll was somewhat less severe than it might have been for other people. I've always worked from home. Most of my family lives in another country, and I didn't get to see them very often anyway. So the
Mhm.
pandemic didn't really disrupt my daily life that much.
Yeah.
I took it very seriously, of course, and still take it very seriously because unfortunately, my kids are at risk for severe COVID. But as someone who also works from home, how was it like for you? Did the pandemic completely upend your life as it did with a lot of people? How was it like?
I think it was very similar to you,
Hmm.
because I was not really too touched about it, because I work from home.
Right.
I don't have um, the dependencies there, so that helped a lot. And yeah, so I would not claim that it had a big impact there for sure.
hmm I think if anything, if there's a job you would want to have during a pandemic, it's probably Twitch streamer, probably someone who
Yeah,
sits
that
in front of
was.
the computer for a living.
I think it even had a positive impact, because people were forced to stay at home, and then they want to entertain themselves, and some people tune into Twitch for that, and that boosts the view numbers. So yeah, being a streamer in these kind of times is even more beneficial compared to other jobs for sure.
Absolutely. So I believe it was toward the end of 2020 that you went vegan. And usually
Yes,
I'm
yes.
not that interested in what people like
Mhm.
to eat, but in your case, it seems like going vegan was more of a lifestyle change. So
Yeah.
what were some of the unexpected benefits that you've seen in yourself after going vegan?
So for me personally, the reason why I did that was I'm like completely into sports, right? And one of the factors I saw myself is that I had certain problems with, let's say, digesting, because when I was eating something like meat related, then it always took like 4 or 5 hours until I finally could perform on sports.
Hmm.
Because I also have the tendency, or back in the days had the tendencies to eat a lot, and
Hmm.
then I saw a movie, and it was about people performing very well after going vegan in sports. I was like, okay, let's try it out. And there's also a side effect, which I want to add as well. Um, I've always been very active if it's about achieving something in life,
Hmm.
and I think like finding a girlfriend for me was very important. And I was like, okay, I need to change something about myself, because I was a very shy or timid person. Like, I couldn't, like, I was very timid, especially if it's about women. And yeah, I was like, okay, I have to get a step out of my comfort zone, and approach women, blah blah. And then I was like, I've always been in the science courses, and there it was always like 95% male, 5%
Females.
female. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I was like, if I could change the circumstances a little bit, then it would be easier. I was like, okay, if I try to go to vegan places, it's going to be exact the other side.
So that's
So
how it
that was
started.
yeah, that was one part of the motivation as well, just to try that one out, and obviously that helped a lot, because my girlfriend, for example, is also vegan now. Um, but yeah, that is just a funny side topic.
But an interesting one.
Yeah, for me the main motivation, after trying it out for 1 month, was seeing that it had a good impact on my life, because I was eating better compared to my old habits. I'm not saying that, because of it's healthy, blah blah blah. I'm not
Mhm,
in the
mhm.
position to be able to say that, but it just had, for me personally, an impact on my personal body. And that's general topic or mindset I have, that if you have a topic, then you always have pro and contra. And I just want to test it myself, like,
Mhm.
okay, there are positive and negative things about it. I want to test it myself. I don't really care about what others say. I want to test it
Mhm.
myself and make my own experience in that regard. And I've done so, and I was very happy with that life change, right? And therefore I stick with it. And ever since, I don't miss anything in that regard, except sometimes ice cream. But okay, that's how it is.
Amazing. Um, you've been having some great results ever since you came back. You finished
Hmm.
fourth in King of the Desert 4, fourth in the Open Classic, third, fourth in the Resurgence, third, fourth in Red Bull 5, second in Battle of Africa 3, and second in Hidden Cup 4,
Yeah,
which blew a lot of people's minds, including my own.
yeah,
And these were just
mine as
S
well.
tier tournaments, by the way.
Hmm.
So, are you happy with your progress so far, or is this still too little for someone who used to be a top 2 player?
No, it's just, when I came back to the game, initially I said I want to be top 10 player again. When I achieve that, I want to aim for the top 5 spots. And I think I'm on a good way in that regard. I still have a lot of room for improving, I think, and that's why I'm working so hard for that. But overall, the road which you have just described was, I think, a combination out of a lot of work, a lot of fortunate, and a lot of luck as well, because sometimes the brackets were a bit into my favor, I would say.
Well,
And
man, listen,
yeah,
listen. You can claim you were lucky in one tournament, maybe, but in five, that's not just luck, man.
no, I know, but it's like, uh, I don't know. There were a lot of factors in there, and I think also when I'm playing tournaments, I play 100%, and when I play ladder, then maybe 80, 85, something like that. So
Right.
uh, I'm always capable of playing the best when it's the clutch moments. It's just like, for example, only Land Cup, which was hosted this month.
Hmm.
If you look at the bracket, 3-2 against Walls, 3-2 against Vallis, then 4-3 against Hera lost, and then 4-3 against Saturn. Like, I always go to the decider. Then against Sitar again, 3-2. There's something about the decider game which sparks my inner beast, so to say.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So, are you still? Do you still have the ambition of going further up in the ladder?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
right, because I believe there's a pretty wide consensus in the community that the top 4 players in Age of Empires 2 right now are Viper, Leary, Hera, and Yo. Probably, I think.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, what are you missing to be at their level?
Decision making experience. I think that is the biggest issue. I don't think it's regarding macro abilities. Micro, of course, yeah. Hera, Larry, and Viper are better than me in that regard. Mistio, not so much.
Hmm.
But macro, I think it's the same. It's more about decision making. But I feel like the decision making has improved vastly for me throughout the last months, and I really trained for that specifically, trying to play in a way that I'm not really playing usually, just
Yeah.
to get a
How does
feel for
one
it.
train for that?
Yeah, for example, I'm a very macro orientated player, and I like to get my 3 TCs up before anything else. For example, once I reach Castle Age. And now I force myself to build a
Not
siege
to do
workshop
it.
forward before adding TCs, just to get a feel on what does the game look like then, right? Because if I get an understanding of what is strong and what is weak, then I'm also capable of countering it when I face against it,
Interesting.
right? So always trying to put myself out of the comfort zone. and just in that way.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I never thought of that. It's such a good point. Um, how long will it take you to get to their level? Are you close?
Extremely close, extremely close. Yeah, I
Awesome.
just think a few more months are needed just for me to get everything going. But I think I can beat anyone
Obviously.
if I have my good day and things are working fine. And yeah, like ambitions. Obviously, I want to be top 3 in the world. So yeah, I've not given up on that endeavor.
So if you want to make it to top three, who are you gonna take out of the top three? Who
Mr.
are you
Yo,
gonna dethrone? Okay, that would still be
Mr.
like a top four only.
Yeah, it depends on the view of certain people. In my opinion, Mr. Yo is 4th place, so obviously him out, and I guess
So I guess the
Ma-
question would be, who are you closest to beat regularly? Out
Mr.
of
Yo.
Viper, no, I mean out of Viper, Leary, and Hera. Out of those three.
I would say against Hera, I have from those 3 the best face-to-face match results, because against Leary in tournaments not so good, in training better, and Viper I feel like has the perfect counter to my playstyle right now.
Interesting, because you used to be the only one who could beat
Mm,
Viper regularly. Things have changed a little bit there.
for
So,
sure.
Marco, you've recently entered the world of tournament organization and casting. So, what
Yes.
was the motivation behind it? You're just trying to diversify your content, or are you just preparing for the future when your skills as a player might start declining?
So the idea was that once Age of Empires 4 came out, we saw a lot of people switching to Age of Empires 4, and Age of Empires 2 hasn't gotten too much tournament love, I would say, at the moment. At least that's how I felt as a player.
Hmm.
And I
You're not
was
alone in that.
exactly, and I was in front of the PC seeing all the money going to Age of Empires 4 and very little money to Age of Empires 2. And obviously, I was unhappy with that. And, I have the mindset, if there's something wrong in your life, don't complain about it, either accept it or change something. And everything else is a waste of time. So I was like, okay, I cannot accept it. So I have to change something about it. And therefore, I was like, okay, how can I make things possible with my own money in worst case to spice things up and,
Hmm.
to revive the activity in Age of Empires 2 again. And that was when in March the idea came that, I could just sponsor myself the JMB, invest my own money into it in worst case and see what happens. So that's
That would
when
be Jordan Medieval Brawl, for
exactly,
those wondering.
yeah,
Hmm.
thanks, yeah, John's Medieval Brawl, and fortunately for me, I was also able to get the $10,000 funding from Microsoft for the resurgence, so that helped a lot. And like from the feedback I've gotten, it really helped to get players motivated again and to play actively. And I'm very satisfied with that. So that was, I would say, the most important motivation for me to revive Age of Empires 2, and obviously also if expanding my brand to also be more of a casting as well, and diversify the content, so to say.
Awesome. So, at least the way I see it, things are starting to shift a little bit, or probably not even shift, but you see, we got now $200,000 for Red Bull
Yeah.
5. So it's not like Age of Empires 2 has been completely forgotten by Microsoft.
Oh, no, no, no.
Right. So, are you going to keep doing these things? So,
Yeah.
is tournament organization something you're going to pursue further?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm planning to have
Got any
season
plans?
two.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, planning having season 2 again, and obviously I want to have those tournaments in phases where there are not too many tournaments going on currently, because the main idea of Drone's Medieval Brawl, for example, is to keep the motivation going for the people, right? And that's why it doesn't make sense to have that hosted during a big event anyway, because people are going to play for the big event. They will be motivated,
Hmm.
but rather have them in phases
In
where
between.
there's in
Hmm.
between.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Awesome. So speaking of future, how long do you see yourself streaming full time? Will you be doing this until you stop working?
I see myself for the next 4 decades. So I don't plan anything else. And a few years ago, when I made the decision to go full time streaming, I knew that ideally I do it until I'm 60, 70, right? Like even if I'm financially independent, that's obviously the extreme case. But even if that was the case, I would still stream because I love it, and
Hmm.
that's the thing, right? Like I follow my passion, and of course I do it because of the passion, and it also gives me a financial backbone.
Hmm.
But if the financial backbone was not needed, I would still do it because I love it.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I don't want to get too much into details here, but are you making just about the same amount of money you were making before? Are you making less money? So was it a downgrade in terms of financial safety?
It was a downgrade. It was downgrade, but it's just like I have a very I would say different view on money in general. Like
Do tell.
it's like I feel like people sometimes decrease their quality of living so much because they think they need more money to be able to afford things they think they need, but they don't actually need it. And then they realize that they get into a certain trap, where I say no, I don't want to go that way. Like because life, you don't know how long you live. You just don't know it. Most people think okay, they're going to live until 100, but you never have the security or the guarantee for that. And that's why I think you need to find a balance between enjoying life and obviously also working toward the future in a sensible manner. But like I see so many people working 67 hours per week just because they get a great paycheck. They don't really enjoy what they're doing, and that's I think very dangerous. Like I like when I committed myself to go to the streaming, I said I'd rather earn half of the money I did in the past and really cut down on many things I have in life right now, rather than spending a lot of my time working something I don't really enjoy and then being able to afford things which don't really give me anything anyway. Like so that is my mindset there. And yeah, I think that's really important to take care of your own health there. It's really important.
It's I hope a lot of people listen to this. That's very important advice in my opinion. Marco, before I let you go, will you ever give Age of Empires 4 another try?
No.
Why not?
mm, I don't enjoy it. I just don't enjoy it. And it is just important for me to focus on things I enjoy. Life is too short, and I don't want to waste time, and I will never do things which I don't enjoy.
What would they need to change in order for you to enjoy the game?
I don't think Age of Empires 4 is ever going to be changed in a way that I enjoyed more than Age of Empires 2, so I don't see it happening.
All right, Marco, this has been such a blast, man. Thank you so much for your time. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Nelson. It was a pleasure as well.